This is not my natural habitat. Okay, here we go. Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming. It's early. Everybody had coffee, so everybody should be sorted. Anyways, what else did I want to say? Well, I've got my cue cards, not comparable to Steve's. They're a little bit, and I don't wear my glasses. But anyways, let's talk about commitment and the comfy couch. Commitment is a very, very serious word. It's solemn, it's dedication, it is all about serious things. So I had to find a counterbalance to commitment and dedication, and I thought about my comfy couch, because that's where I ended up after all this dedicated, committed work. It all began in Germany. I was a scrawny little kid, and growing up in a family of farmers and workers, so we were all very down-to-earth people. And my dad wanted me to be a bus driver. And I thought, hell no. But he had a valid reason, because he had an omnibus travel company, and behind you see my brother and my mum talking. So he was planning to incorporate his entire breed to deal with the company. And I knew I had to get really, really creative. So there's my first thing going. I'm not looking at the car. I ended up trying to get into different things, like drawing. And I drew a lot. And I was really, really good at it. And in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher said, can she exhibit a crib which I made out of plasticine? And she asked my mum. She didn't ask me. So I let it drop to the floor and destroyed it. So that was my love-hate relationship with public. Didn't like it. At home, I would just sit every day for 1.5 hours in my grandfather's comfortable chair, and nobody could talk to me. So I completely withdrew. Family verdict was, Liane is weird. So I went to elementary school. My best subject was drawing. I did very well. And my family thought, let's bring her to one of the best schools in town, which was an all-girls school, and it was taught by nuns. Didn't go down well with me. My grandmother said, well, now she is probably, in a couple of years, she's probably not talking to us anymore, because my grandmother was really scared that I would get ideas. So 2 years later, I was kicked out of that school, and I was very happy to attend a normal school with boys and girls and normal teachers, and no snobby girls, and I was really happy. Did extremely well in that school, best subject art. But of course, lots of girls like to draw, and lots of girls like to do art. So when I said, well, instead of being a bus driver, I really like to study art, my dad said, no way, you're not going to end up as a starving artist. So I had to get creative. I was committed to making it work. And I wanted to study art in Berlin or Hamburg, which was the place to go for. And not very successful. So this is me asking for trouble again at school. My parents were fined 100 D-Mark at the time, because I drew my cartoon figures everywhere, including my desk at school. So the desk had to be replaced. That's how anal they were. Then there was a job assessment at school, and I was about 16, and the counselor told me, well, you would be a perfect doctor's or dentist's help. So I said, hell no. And I had to get very creative, because that was my absolute, utter nightmare, the dentist. But at the time, it was just where girls were pushed into a certain direction. So it didn't go down well with the normal crowd, like working class crowd, that you had aspirations like artist, to become an artist or do something academic or whatever. Again, my grandmother, she said, why don't you become a nurse? A nice nurse. And I thought, what is going on? So the compromise was made, and I enrolled into the design program in my local town, which is Bielefeld. And I wasn't very happy, as you can see. But it was a compromise. I did my best. So drawing for me was my life how do you say, life essence. I drew every day for 6 hours. They made us draw. I had a professor from Italy who was the nicest man on the planet. And he would just love me, I would love him, and he would just encourage me to draw. And that's what I wanted to do. So I did this when I was 19. And it was the first glimpse of where I'll probably end up, and that's Calgary. So nobody was wearing cowboy boots. And I got those cowboy boots in Amsterdam, and I sported them very proudly. And everybody said, oh my God, where did you get those boots? So now it's just a normal attire. So eventually then I graduated against the odds. My graphic design professor called me not being able to do a straight line. You will never ever make it in the design field. My illustration professor kicked me out of class because of attitude. But against the odds, I graduated in graphic design, illustration, and photography. And I did all three subjects because I just loved all three, and I just wanted to make it work. So behind me, you see portraits of a model, which I painted in different versions for a calendar. So I did a calendar out of that. And I also did the photography, so I developed the photos, which were color photos. And after it was all finished and the graduation was finished, some calendar company offered me 3,000 D-Mark to produce the calendar, and I said no. So love-hate relationship with public. Then the big epiphany. I got a job in an advertising agency and was responsible for concept, layout, and photography. It was a very, very small agency, so nothing really famous. And I had a blast. So eventually the camp came up, and I heard about it and traveled to Berlin and listened to a guest lecture of an American professor. Was barely able to understand him, but what I got is that computer graphics is the future. And this professor was booed out by the students, who were fine art students, and I was attempting to study there. And I thought, God, I'm lucky that I didn't end up here, because they were not very progressive thinking. And anyways, I went home and thought, well, advertising agency is kind of done. Then they went bust because they committed fraud big style. And I had to find a different job. And I thought, okay, let's go for finding something in computer graphics. And met a photographer in my hometown who purchased the first computer graphics system, which was at the time called Dicomed. It was a Dicomed software. And we did presentation slides. And I was responsible for contacting. So I went to Dr. Oetker, who is a local food maker. Well, everybody knows Dr. Oetker. And said, we've got the fantastic new system, and we can provide you with presentation business slides. Got the job, and then after a couple of months, I saw the limitations of that system, because for one slide, it would take about half an hour to transmit the data through a telephone line to Munich, where the slide was developed and then sent in 2 days to Bielefeld, so I could shovel it over to Dr. Oetker. So it was a little bit limiting, and I got a little bit impatient. So then I heard about a new system which was called Quantel Paintbox, and I got really excited. And I thought, okay, so how can I get access to one of those systems? And there's the Paintbox on that side. There were 3 systems in Germany at the time. One was in Hamburg, one was in Munich, and one was in a tiny village next to Frankfurt. And I thought, Hamburg, too good to be true. Munich, oh my God, but very expensive and full of really, really interesting people, but still probably not accessible. So let's check this tiny village near Frankfurt. And I wrote a letter asking whether I can work on that system. Well, they just got somebody new to working on it, and I had to continue because I was unemployed as the company got bust. I had to continue coloring in little cat prints, which I did on my kitchen table in order to survive. So a year later, I got a phone call, and they said, well, the person we employed is not able to draw. We need somebody who is able to draw, because that is something which all the technic-inspired people lack in. I hope I phrase it right. So I got the job. And the pressure was on because 2 weeks later, after I started there, a BMW crowd was on approach because they couldn't get access to the Munich system. So that therefore they tried to get into ours because the hour was 450 D-Mark at the time, and they were particular about getting things right. So I had 2 weeks to prepare, which meant day and night. So I sat there and I was trying to make it work. It's similar as if you try to learn perhaps Photoshop in 2 weeks. And everybody who is creative knows that that is a very, very difficult task. It was difficult, but I'm always up for a challenge. So after 2 weeks, the guys arrived, a director from Munich with people from the BMW asking for interactive videos for BMW car mechanics, and they were asking me to change a landscape from a summer landscape into a winter landscape, and I thought, God, and I made it. So it worked. So yeah, and then time was good. I had lots and lots of fun, and we had lots of different assignments for German bank and all the people who could afford paying for that system. Eventually, one day, I sit in front of my paint box, and the door opens, and 4 or 5 guys, well, I'm always saying 4, but it might have been 3, maybe 5 guys came in and sat behind, because they were always sitting behind me, strictly observing what I was doing because of the expenses. And I was asked to do a plan, a digital plan for something, and I said, so what is this for? And then a guy got up and he said, it's actually, how do you say, a plan, a steering plan for a bomb. And I said, wow, a Swiss army guy. Why do they need bomb? They are neutral anyhow. So I said, what kind? And then he said, well, this bomb, if it detonates, it's going to erode your little village and maybe a little bit of the woods next and left and right. To nothing. So I thought, this is enough, because I have my morals and I'm a pacifist. So I got up, went to my boss and said, you know what, I'm not doing this job. And I was not scared whatsoever to lose my job. I just didn't do it. And I didn't like the guys, and I didn't like the concept. So I never saw them again. I don't know what happened with them. And by the way, my son said losing is written with 1 O. And why don't the Brits not get the grammar right? And I said, I think, well, anyway, so that's a short move. So, I had fun in this job, and I had lots of challenges during that job, learning the new technology on the way, learning by doing it. And then I got a phone call from Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, which is a big newspaper in Frankfurt, and they were asking me to work for them, and I thought, yes, because this is the Holy Grail. So I went there and I negotiated, and I was very cheeky, as I can be if under pressure. And they wanted me to develop an electronic graphic department. They had already 2 graphic designers working there, but they needed the input of somebody who is already familiar with electronic graphics. So I went there and I started this electronic graphic department, which was hilarious given the circumstances that 2 people had no idea about electronics, and lots of people had no idea about graphics, because I was working with technicians, mostly men, and I was working with the creative side, mostly people who had never done it before. So eventually we conquered it. And we did not going back to those guys. Oh, not going back. Okay, so. And we did for BMW, for the Munich October Festival, I did this image of my colleague, fitting the theme, I thought. And they took it. So I'm only showing you what I personally did. I'm not showing you the big labels like BMW or Deutsche Bank or whatever, the big names. I just show you what I personally did. So then I got into a magazine because I did a pure illustration, except the globe. The globe is transferred onto the screen. But I did this as a pure illustration and showing what you can do with a paint box, doing paintbrush, using the graphic elements, just showing the concept of it. Porsche didn't buy it though, but I'm still a big admirer of Porsche. Anyway, so this Porsche has been built 400 times. And it's a 959. It's a good one. So then, of course, insurance companies came and they were kind of asking me to spice up boring contents because they were talking about insurances, they were talking about developments which people would make asleep. So I had to spice it up with some cartoons on paper. So we combined paperwork and electronics. Did a series of that, and there we are, the comfy couch again. It was my daily business. So in the morning at 10 o'clock we would have a conference, and then we would get the newest news, and then I would go back and we would think about what could we present. And I had to be very fast. So this series of drawings had to be finished in 2 hours. So the drawing skills were always came always in very handy. And I can't stress it enough for students to concentrate on drawing. This got me into trouble. So one day the Catholic Church rang, and my boss came to the room I was working and said, "Well, you overdid it." And I said, what did I do? So this is my cartoon figure which I created, and this figure just appeared in every cartoon I made, and I had it swear once on the Bible. So it's not only the Muslim community which is anal when it comes to caricatures, it's the Catholic community as well. They called it blasphemy, and they wanted my scalp. How do you say? And my boss stood very, very strong behind me and said, "Well, this is okay. It's artistic freedom. It's artistic expression. So this is okay." The other thing which got me into trouble is that the chemical giant Höchst was releasing radioactivity into the atmosphere, and I heard that at the conference in the morning at 10 o'clock, and I thought, "Shit! Well, it's not going to be a healthy thing." So I created an image which unfortunately I can't show you because I don't have it in my files. I created an image with a really poisonous cloud, and I can do clouds as I show you later, and the radioactivity sign in a big schematic thing behind it, and had a nice subline. So my boss was called, graphic design department overdid it, 50,000 fine. My boss stood firm behind me because he shared my views. So this is the stuff where it's just like living on the edge sometimes. And then the commitment to provoke. On my 30th birthday, I thought it's a good idea to wear this T-shirt. My mom said, "Is it necessary?" Because so I just like it, and I think it's perhaps good for a laugh, and I just like the idea. But anyways, then I ended up on my comfy couch for 6 weeks as I broke my leg. Maybe as a punishment, I can't say, but anyway, so after 6 weeks, my mind was so empty that I could stare out of the window for hours not doing anything. And that was really healthy, because then this happened. So I had my twins, 2 boys, man who needs them, yeah. And life changed dramatically. And I was a devoted single mom at work. And anybody who has kids and works in the media business understands how difficult that can be, because you have to go for deadlines, you have to be there, there's a team waiting. You can't just say, "Well, I have to take the kid to the doctor." So I had an au pair who helped me. She was a very patient girl from Finland. She partied a lot, she drank a lot, but she was very good with the kids, and we had a good time. So I'm back to any studio which took me, because I lost my job, which was the biggest blow to my mind, because I had to support my kids, and losing my job was shocking, because nobody prepared me for that. It was just out of the blue. They dissolved the entire department, and it was mayhem. So I had to work in different video production facilities, which is good, because you go always to a different workplace, but you make it work because you have to. It's commitment for the kids. So that was my workplace. And I was working with different directors on different projects. So it was an always changing subject. I really kind of liked that. I felt very empowered. So I did cartoons on paper, including working in editing rooms. And I did my best to provoke. And then I got married in England. So I met my husband, got married in England, and decided to stay in England because it doesn't do any harm to learn the language, I thought. Oh God, I was in for a surprise. It was absolutely awful. I had my kids. I ended up in this semi-detached. Nobody knew me. Nobody invited me for a coffee. I was the odd out, and I was really, really homesick. But of course, I made the commitment. I got married, and I had to make it work. My husband was in training to be a doctor. We had no money. I felt I need to support the family. I need a job, but nobody was waiting for me. So I didn't get a job in England, and I continued doing my cartoons for German companies and tried to make it work because we needed an additional income. So then I had another boy, man who needs them. And after that, I got really, really depressed because, of course, I couldn't work anymore because I had 3 kids to look after. And I thought, now I have to do something, otherwise I go downhill because I need challenges. I need challenges for my brain. I couldn't stay at home and just look after the babies, as weird that might sound, but I couldn't do it. So eventually I had the idea and took my 3 kids off the comfy couch into the local business and management center. And I remember I had my son on my arm. He was a year old, and he would always do this, thrush his head forward so I could balance him, because on that hand I had my other kids who were 4 at the time. So the guys at the business and management center were laughing their heads off, and they said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to study for an MBA because my research said if you have that, you have a better chance to get a new job." And I thought, and additionally, I can learn English. So they had a good laugh. And my son was thrashing his head forward all the time. And the twins were quiet, which was good. And they said, "Yeah, well, go home and continue drawing." And I thought, okay, if a man tells me to do that, I'm up for a challenge. And I said, okay, what do I need in order to get in? And they said, well, you have to sit the exams for CBA and DBA in order to get into the MBA. CBA certificate, DBA degree, whatever. So I said, give me the books. When are the exams? They said, in 3 months. And they obviously thought she's not going to make it. They didn't know me. So I took the books. I rang an agency in Germany asking for an au pair, asked my mum to help me with money because we had no money, and read the books day and night, went to the exams, sat CBA and DBA simultaneously, and got in. The guys looked at me like, wow, shit. Okay, so I studied for an MBA, and that took me to Phoenix in America. I've never been to America before, and it was really, really exciting. And we did some business consulting for America West, and I felt very, very important. That's me, well, in the middle there, very important. So we held some lectures there, and of course, people were job. How do you say if you are hunting for a new employee? But they were only hunting for American employees because we came from Britain. But it was a good experience. So eventually I got my hat, which didn't really suit me. I look absolutely awful with it. But I thought, okay, this is done. And next stop, comfy couch, because I was exhausted. And then the couch and its visitors. We celebrated a lot after that. And then I went job hunting. And I remember having a job interview, and the guy said to me after 5 hours interviewing me, well, it's too good to be true, but you have kids. So again, limitation, and I absolutely despised that, but that was the reality at the time. So I did freelance things for the Bristol City Council, where I did promotion and marketing material, and then I found a job with a lawyer, a company in Liverpool. And the marketing manager asked me to assess his performance. And I was very happily doing that. And my conclusions after 2 days was, well, stop drinking. He was induced all the time. He had beer in the morning, lunch, he was just drinking a lot. So it was very easy, and I got very well paid for it. And I think we bought a new couch. So basically what I also did is doing lots of cartoons again, trying to stay sane, because it was a lot of work. Okay, so then I got a job offer, and surprise, surprise, in my hometown. And in my hometown was an advertising agency everybody wanted to work at after studying in Bielefeld, and that was called RTS. And they gave me a job as an account manager, and I was responsible for Knorr. And I did a series of Thai soups and stuff, whatever. So that was a fantastic job. And I was sitting opposite a guy who was perhaps 23, and he asked me the question one day, so how would you decide what is good design? And he caught me absolutely blank, because I couldn't answer it. Because I just assumed that good design is what you come up with, and that it is kind of given. But then I had to think about how to explain this to him, because he had a serious question, and he was deserving an answer. And many years later, I got a clear grip of how to answer that when I was teaching graphic design. But in this case, after 3 months, my family was split. I took one child with me to Germany, and the twins stayed with my husband in England, and I was commuting backwards and forwards, and it didn't work. It seriously didn't work. So I had to give up that job, which I loved so much, because my commitment towards my family was stronger than my commitment to being a flashy designer. So a stop in between, we went to Italy. I had a glass of red wine, I had another glass of red wine, I had a bottle of red wine, and another beautiful boy. So these things happen, that's life. And another person to commit to. So I stayed afloat by promotion materials. So I came up with these illustrations. And number one, the bear. I could use that here or something. So here we go. This is Easter. And Easter, I forgot the year because years don't matter to me. At Easter, my husband announces, well, let's go to Canada for a year of skiing. And I was too tired to object. I couldn't care less. And I thought, wherever. If I cook here or if I cook in Canada, well, maybe cooking in Asia would be difficult, but I don't care. So, yeah, let's do it. So he got a job at the Foothills Hospital, and he was doing a fellowship here because he was very interested in finding out how it is to work in a 750-bed hospital, which didn't exist in England. So he dashed off, and I remember I booked a room for him at the University of Alberta. He dashed off in July. And at the 5th of July, I get a really angry phone call from him saying, well, you booked me a room at the University of Alberta. And I say, yeah. And he said, yeah, I'm in Calgary. They don't have a room. And I say, yeah, University of Alberta. Alberta is the province. And he said, yeah, but that's in Edmonton. And I said, sorry. But I didn't know, so that was a good start. And of course, it was Stampede. He was really furious, but anyways. So eventually, I rented out the house, and but I did the groundwork, whereas my husband would just dash off. So I rented out the house, and then I took my mother-in-law and the 4 boys, and I think we had 15 pieces of luggage, and flew to Calgary. And that was a culture shock, because I thought Calgary, but my youngest son was asking, where are the Indians? Sorry, that's not politically correct, but that's what he said. And he was expecting a different field, but what we saw. He was expecting people on horses, with headgear and whatever. So I said, yeah, I don't know. So went into town, and I was scared to death to see those big trucks, to see the space. I couldn't fathom the space. And I had to come to terms with that. And it took me a while. And then I started painting. And my love-hate relationship with the public started again. Shall I exhibit or shall I not? Am I good enough or am I not? Is my contents of paintings suitable for this society or not? So I did this big painting of steelworkers, and I called it Recession. I did in 2008, and I felt that recession was a good topic because the banks completely collapsed, and I wanted to show the implication for the working class. Didn't go down well. I think the space closed short after that, but it's not my fault. But I think they just miscalculated. And then I had to make an effort and get out of the house more often because I felt lonely again. And went to the University of Calgary and continuous education and met this very nice gentleman called John Malinowski. He died, unfortunately, 2 years ago, and he gave me the chance to design a graphic design program, which I taught at the university for 5 years. And I had good outcomes and bad outcomes. Some students said, well, I've got a language barrier because I said Scotch tape, sellotape instead of Scotch tape. And because I would put on too much emphasis on marketing and business in my lectures, which I felt was really important for graphic designers to know, because otherwise they can't understand the concept of making things work, that they all work together. So I tried to bring that across. And I was very committed to good teaching and to make it entertaining so that the contents would stick to those people's minds, students' minds. Then I thought, okay, finally, fine art, I always wanted to do that. I concentrate on painting now. And I went back to a studio, well, that's me inside my studio. And it looks like a bad film, like the detective waiting for customers. And that's how I start mostly my day. I'm just sitting there looking out the window, thinking about the next step I take on a painting. And I'm very passionate about painting. So with paintings, what happens is that I really care. With graphic design, well, it's just given away and I don't care about it anymore. So the cartoons were just given away and I don't care. With paintings, they are my brain kids. And if people don't understand it, I get impatient and I don't know, and not very nice, I guess. And I have a very, very strong affiliation to cows. Not only because I'm in Calgary, but all my life. Well, I was brought up partly on a farm, and we were made to milk cows in the morning at 5 o'clock. And we had this game going on: who can hold a cow's tongue the longest? So like this, and it's very slimy. So it was a task. So I did lots of cow paintings and went to the Stampede and was once an artist in action. And we're supposed to do a painting in 1 hour, which I took serious. So I took a canvas to the Stampede and I propped it on the easel, and I had all my paint there, and I started doing the drawing, and I was completely immersed in what I was doing. 20 minutes later, I just look around and I see that all my fellow artists have put ready-made paintings on their easels and just correct a little bit on them, and I thought, sheets. Well, my wet painting, which was oil paint, sold for $600, and I think some oil executive bought it, and I'm really happy about that. But I thought, no, I'm not doing artisan action anymore, because that's not how it should be. Oh, okay, so then when I needed money, I go to Las Vegas, which is a joke, but I have a very addictive nature, and I always feel that I could get addicted to gambling because I win up to now. So, and then I took commissions. This is a portrait of a guy in Calgary who is called Stephen. I forgot his first name, and he was one of the founders of the Stevenson Cardiac MRI Center. So he did a very, very good thing for the community. And somebody said, well, can you go and do a portrait of him? And I thought, sure. So I took my camera and I went to his house and I took pictures of him. And his wife said, well, why do you wear this horrible shirt? But I liked it because it was stripy and had colors in it. And I went home and I thought, oh God, I mean, it's not easy to paint somebody from a photo, and it's not easy to paint somebody you are given in front of you. So, which is not your choice. Anyway, so I thought, I just do it. And I did this, I finished this painting, which is about this big, in 3 hours. because I looked at the photos. I got the idea. Oh God, I'm now rolling away. And I did it in 3 hours because it needed to be done fast. I need to get it out of my system. Took it to his house a couple of months later after the paint was dry and thought he's going to kick me out because this is not the kind of style he probably would go for when he would buy paintings. So I had this little dramatic moment when I unveiled the painting and I thought, this is it. His wife was there and he looked at the painting for 1.5 minutes or so and he looked at me and he said, I think you got it. And I thought, this was really, I mean, it's hard, it's really hard to do this. And he took the painting and hung it next to all his group of 7 paintings in his living room. So moment of fame. He probably took it off after I left, but anyways. So what I'm doing now is I researched the material about Calgary and books about Calgary. And this is a first attempt on doing a book about Calgary. And there's Tali, who is helping me with her colleague from And Then. And there's Janet, who is the photographer of some of those photos in the book. And this is a project going on now for 3 years. Takes a lot of time. I thought I'm doing it in 3 months, but no way. So page design. This is the photo which you know from the Commitment series. And this is the first crime we committed. We went to the cemetery in Calgary because we wanted to take a photo of the Calgary Stampede firework. And the cemetery is the best place to lift a drone. So we had a drone. It was in complete darkness. Hopefully there's no police in here. And the drone lifted up and we took a fantastic photo. We thought, well, it's probably getting better, but anyway, so we were happy with that. And that's going on into the book. And the theme of the book is just showing different aspects of Calgary and of the local scene with my cow painting in it. And possibly me in it. Not always, but sometimes. So I like the spontaneous image. And I love this image. Well, we had another image where the policemen were just standing neatly lined up, which is kind of boring. I like this one. And of course, here, I took risks because I'm not very good at roller skating. Janet took the photo, and I was just rolling backwards and forwards until the manager of this restaurant came out and said, "You're not allowed to roll here." Anyway, so we had fun doing that. And then, the next episode, Janet probably vividly remembers that, I took this tin boat out on Glenmore Reservoir to show the Glenmore Reservoir, and I couldn't get back to shore. whereas Janet was just pacing up and down. She can't come. It was a very windy day, and I simply couldn't. I was absolutely exhausted when that photo was taken, but happy because I made it. Yeah. Oh, God. And then they made me sit on one of those electronic boards, and I refused to have that photo in the book. So I asked this guy, would he sit for me and take my cow sticker on his leg? He happily volunteered, and this is the outcome. I love it. So the Harley Davidson driver opposite the Harley Davidson shop, who had the cow in tow. And then, of course, checking the public's reaction to the painting and telling the story about the book. So it's just part of the communication work, which I tried doing, and I'm still doing. And then I dismantled my comfy couch, because 30 years of 4 boys and their friends and lots of things happening to it, it needed a revamp. It was basically broken. So this is, and then, of course, I met this lovely lady, which was a big coincidence. One of her assistants came to my studio and bought a painting, and I said, "So, what are you doing?" She said, "I'm the assistant to Rachel Notting." I said, "Wow! So can you please take one of my cow stickers?" And I wrote a little note on the back of the cow sticker saying, "Well, to Rachel, keep up the good work. A flaming supporter from Calgary." And she gave this to Rachel, who then 2 weeks later wanted to meet me, and I didn't want to meet because I have a love-hate relationship with public, and I'm not very good in public. I have really to make an effort, but I went because I thought it's an honor. And eventually I had a good talk with her, and I said, "I would not like to change with you in a million years." And she said, "I would love to change with you tomorrow." And we had a glass of red wine and a good talk. And I said, I'm going to paint you, and I'm going to give you that portrait for free. You don't have to pay for it. And she said, but I'm vain, so make me beautiful, please. She is a very, very witty and very, very clever person, intelligent person. And here's a small demonstration of my painting process. So I'm at the moment doing a series of line drawings or line paintings, which are depicting just everyday life scenes. And in this painting in particular, I was concentrated on the dog and trying to get the dog as fluid as possible as he is lying in the cushion. And I think I do a great job. It's not finished yet, but that's just to demonstrate how my painting process works. So the couch is getting better and better, ready for new adventures. And then, of course, an exhibition here at King Edward Sea Space, which was an excellent experience. The good experience was to meet fellow painters and have a good conversation with them and just network, because that's what we should do much, much more. We are not very good at it. And the not so good experience was that nobody saw the painting. So I think the marketing and the promotion work needs to be up and up in order to get interested customers along, because it was a huge amount of work and commitment, dedication of many volunteers. So we have to make it a little bit more accessible for potential customers in the future. But it was the first one of its kind here at Sea Space. Then there's the landscape, the Canadian landscape, which needs to be mentioned, because the Canadian landscape is, as Stephen said before in the introduction, is what made me start it here, because it's vast open spaces. The progress of a landscape. My landscape approach is doing a red canvas, because landscape colors are white, green, and blues, and the red is kind of counteracting to that and gives it a very nice extra. So I just show this. The painting is about this big. I can't show big. It's of a photo which I got from lovely Carmen of Emerald Lake. She forgot already, but you sent me the photo. Then I like to mix landscapes and figures in line drawings. And then I'd like to show you one of my favorite landscapes, which for me completely illustrates what I see mostly in Canada when it is winter. So what do you see? It's ice. It's ice. And what I especially love about this painting is the complete looseness of it, and the fact that I was able to manage this to doing in 1 hour. So that's my goal, to do paintings in a very short. Don't tell anybody, because then people would not pay the price for it. But there's lots of work going into that. So the next project is going to be a series of 5 paintings on burlap, which forces me to work extremely fast, because burlap has a very, very rough structure, and the paint sinks in. So you need either a huge amount of oil paint, or I found a way to prime the burlap in order to make the paint sit on the primer. So it is basically my life experience in those 5 paintings, starting with Mother God, then Mother God and her daughter, and then the 3 Graces in a religious context, and then the 4 horsewomen, and then the 5 senses, all depicted showing women and the hardship in life with trying to make everything work, because we have an added how do you say? Well, I can't really say added hardship. Sounds a little bit too solemn, but life for women is tough. For men too, but I don't care about men, as you saw earlier. Anyways, Ben who needs them, but so okay. Most important people in my life. That's my family, and of course my mother, who supported me always, and saw things, taught me humor, I guess. And that's the next generation. That's my son, his version of cows. He wants to be a tattoo artist. He's studying at ACAT, and he is a very talented draws person. Well, I don't tell him, because he's getting big. And that's the new sofa. Antonio finished it. So I'm ready for new beginnings, or new things. And thank you very much for coming and listening to my lecture.